Hey there, fourth graders. Welcome to my basement. Sometimes you just go where the quietest place is in the house to work. So I'm in my basement today. Welcome. Today we're going to start working on putting it all together. We've spent about a week and a half working on question answer relationships, and I've really enjoyed seeing your responses and seeing your engagement with this topic. Teaching question answer relationships is something I've wanted. I learned about it last summer, something I've kind of wanted to do all year, and I've never taught it this way before. And I just kind of thought, why not? Online. Let's just do it online, and I'm very pleased with how it's turned out. So thank you everyone for your hard work and doing such a great job with these. So I want to sort of kind of stitch everything together into one. Like, let's just kind of do review everything all at once. So what have we been working on? If I were to sum up what we've been working on into just one thing, what the term question answer relationships means is that it means how we find an answer depends on the type of question that is asked. I'm going to say that one more time. How we find an answer to a question depends on the type of questions that are asked. So we've learned about two groups of questions that are found primarily in the book and questions that are found primarily in your head, although you always use both. You're always going to use the book and your head, but just some use more of the book and some use more of your head. Those different types we answer those in different ways. So within the book questions, there are right there questions and there are think and search questions. Within my head questions, there are on my own and there are author and me questions. So what I want to do today is just review all of those, because your assignment today is the first day I am not asking any questions. Today is the day where you get to ask 4 questions. You're going to ask one of each type. And then you're going to answer your peers, your other students' questions. Now, if you need to go back and review any of my previous videos on question and answer relationship on any of these 4 topics, you can go click on modules on the left-hand side and then find the type that you want to watch. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm just going to review these 3 types today. So first, right there questions. When we're answering right there questions, we just have to find a single spot in the text. So Brett had a fantastic question that he asked today. He asked, where did Myrtle and Violet get washed up at? So if you remember, they got off the train. They're in Washington, D.C. They're very, very dirty. And there was a very specific spot where they found a spigot and they washed up at. And it was in Myrtle's old neighborhood. Was where they ended up getting washed up at. And that makes sense because Myrtle would know where to go to get washed up at. So Brett, thanks for contributing and thanks for that fantastic question. Millie asked a great one too. She asked, why could Myrtle not go in the same car as Violet? Now, in some ways that might be more of a think and search, but there is one specific answer in the text, and the conductor says it's because she's black, and so she's got to go ride in the different car. Bowen asks about how many letters from Chloe were Violet's parents hiding. You can go to that specific spot in chapter 1, and it either says that she grabs a handful or a stack, but we can make an inference. We can guess about how many she stole. So Bowen, great question. And then Kale. And Kale has a lot of these questions in this slideshow. I mean, I didn't try to pick one student over another. I just, Kale had a lot of great questions that I wanted to highlight. So way to go, Kale. So Kale says, Violet and Myrtle met in New York. Oh, sorry, that's the answer to my question. He asks, where were Violet and Myrtle when they found out Chloe was in jail? And that's a very specific spot in the text. We could go to find that answer if you can't remember it. And it was at the Cameron house is where that happened. We can go to that very specific spot. Next, we're talking about think and search questions. These ones can range from being easier to being very, very hard, depending on how many details you have to string together across texts. But you have to make connections across different pages to answer this question. So I shared this one yesterday of Kylie's, but it's still a fantastic think and search question about, why did Violet go with a stranger? Why did Violet go with Myrtle? McKenna had a great one of compare Chloe and Violet and how they're like or how they're not. And you could do Myrtle and Violet as well. And to really get a robust answer there, you're going to have to find details about those characters in different spots of the text. Ian asked a great one. What other reasons made Chloe run away? It doesn't tell you right out why Chloe ran away. It sort of strings you along and gives you little details. And we're going to find even more details by the end of the book. So by the end of the book, our answer of why Chloe ran away would be a much different answer than we were in chapter 2. And so you use sort of the whole text, lots of details across the text to build your case. And then Clara said, why did Mr. Martin follow Violet and Myrtle to the Cameron house in Washington, D.C.? Now, Mr. Martin said that it was because he wanted to make sure they got there safely. So in that sense, it would be more of a right there question. But you and I both know that there were other reasons that Mr. Martin followed them, that there's sort of deeper things going on that he hasn't really talked about why he followed them. So that would be a think and search question, and our answer for that one's going to evolve over time there. So those two types right there and think and search questions are questions that are found in the text, and we have to really use our brains to find those answers. The next kind are in my head questions, and these are where we use the text still, but it's primarily with what's in our head. So with on my own, we're going to connect to what we already know. Sierra asked a great question. Why did Violet's mom... Oh, this was supposed to go on the other slide. Sorry, Sierra. This was supposed to go on the think and search of why did Violet's mom keep letters from her. That's an awesome, awesome question, and that's one too that we sort of find more answers out throughout as we go throughout the book. So that's a great think and search question. So Addie asked, have you ever went somewhere on a train? The key strategy with these on my own questions is you connect to what you already know with either crafting the question or answering it. Kale asked, have you ever written a letter to someone and got back an answer? Well done, Kale. Casey said, Violet is finding her sister Chloe. Have you ever had to find your brother or sister? That's a great on my own question where you connect to what you already know. Yoali's is really small, but how would you feel? I forgot to make that a little bit bigger. It says, how would you feel if you got treated like Myrtle? And that's the one I brought up in my other video, but that's a great, fantastic on my own question, Yoali. So the key is that you are connecting to what you already know. And if you're asking the question, you're asking something of someone's that they might have had in real life that's similar to the experience found in the text. Okay, next. Let's do author and you questions. These ones are probably the hardest to both ask and to answer. I don't know. Think and search ones can be really hard to answer. But this one, I loved Ben's, because there's a sort of random part in the book that doesn't really fit in anywhere, where Violet's looking, I think she's looking for Mr. Martin and Myrtle, and then she sees this, woman that's pregnant fall down on the tracks. And she's kind of taken aback, and she has this conversation with her. And that was a very specific choice by the author. The author chose to include that in the text. The author didn't have to. And there's a very important reason for it. And the careful reader, the careful reader will know that it's that moment. It's right after she gets done talking with that pregnant woman she must be, so she has a son who's old enough to be coming back from war, but he's dead, so they're sending him home in a coffin. But she's still young enough to have children. So she's kind of like straddling these two worlds. But it's after talking with that woman of her having one son come home in a box and then one child being brought into the world that, Violet starts to really feel that maybe, women having the right to vote is something worth having. And she hadn't really considered that before. That's why that's my opinion about why the author included that. But it was a very specific choice by the author. Kale asked, why did the author have Myrtle be a colored person instead of a white person? Kale, that's a great question, because again, that was a specific choice by the author. And so when we sort of get into the author's shoes and ask why the author would include that, then we can sort of see a better nuanced view or a more complete view of what's going on in the text. So Kale, great question there. Emma asked, it's a little small, I got sick of cropping them. Why do you think the author would have made it so that Violet had to get 3 places to finally get food? So there's that first night at the Hermitage Hotel, and she kind of has to wander all over the whole hotel, and she ends up just saying, hey, where can I get a bite of food to eat? And I think it's one of the reasons I think the author did that is because the author was sort of showing this Southern lifestyle where things were very different, where just to go into the dinner, you had to have, an evening ball gown on, or the grill room. You couldn't go to the grill room unless you were a male. So that's, I think, why, is to kind of get Violet and the reader used to, things are maybe a little bit different than what Violet's used to. The things in the South are a little bit different than what Violet and perhaps the reader are used to. Jaden asks, why did the author make Chloe go to different areas instead of just one? And again, that's another very specific choice by the author, that the author had Chloe be, she's been in DC, she's been in New York, she's in Tennessee. And we even know Chloe said that she was driving around the backcountry of Tennessee. So those are all very specific questions that the author decided to include in the text, that when we can answer why the author put that in, it actually helps us understand the text better. So thank you so much for watching. Your assignment today, this is going to be a challenge, but I know you can do it, is to ask one of each type of question. For the in the text questions that you, well, let's do this. So you need to ask one of each type of question, and then you have to go answer 4 other questions. So this assignment is going to be worth 8 points, 1 for each question that you ask, and then 1 for each question that you answer. If you answer a in the text question, then you will need to tell which page number it's on, and then you'll also need to tell your classmates which type of question you're asking for each. So good luck. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, good luck. Bye bye. Bye bye. It's still going. Why is it going?